When I arrive back at my private practice, Clarissa is out for lunch. On the same note I left for her this morning, she wrote back,
I will be back soon with lunch, for both of us. Do not eat another chocolate protein pack.
I smirk, continue into my office, and immediately pull out the device I found at Ferdinand's kitchen drawer. Shading the windows, I begin inspecting. Although I've seen my dad and his friends use a similar device countless times, I admittedly have never actually used one myself. I start by pressing the button on the side. The light immediately consumes the office. Radiating from the device, Brother Archean text reads out, "Swipe up." So I swipe upwards on the feedback display, and my heart sinks. The device now illuminates an image of Mr. Hunter and my dad, with the text saying, "Mission Briefing." Under the image, smaller text reveals details regarding Ferdinand's involvement with Brother Arc Outreach. I swipe up again, and more text shows up at the bottom.
Mission Briefing. Ferdinand Hunter. Gabriel Hunter. Classified intel for Hunter Eyes Only. CBI. Off books. Infiltration and retaliation. F. Hunter to infiltrate the terrorist group disguised as the outreach organization known as Brothers of Odyssey. Retaliation for the assassination of Dr. Emmett Brody deemed necessary. Discover possible weak spots and members of leadership. Mission contingencies.
I drop the device. The militia told me my father died in a senseless act of violence. What the hell is this about an assassination? Gabriel Hunter, I need to call Mr. Hunter immediately. My hand flies towards my radio on my ear. I rapidly tap in the sequence to call the frequency Mr. Hunter provided. After pressing the binary language frantically on the radio, I wait for an answer. Eventually, his housekeeper picks up.
Hello? You've reached Gabriel Hunter's radio. He's currently indisposed. May I take a message?
She chimes out. This is Orion. Wake his ass up and get to my practice. I have urgent news. I reply, unsuccessfully trying to hide my anger. I really should have asked him about my dad when I had the chance. After ending the call, I pick up the device to see it didn't survive the fall. The glass on the display is shattered, and the metallic casing puffs out like a bloated pig. Cursing myself for dropping the device in the first place, I pace around the room. Did the device hold any more secrets? The sound of my footsteps against the carpet keeps a muted tempo. My train of thought swerves and turns on the beat as I speculate and reach for answers. Gabriel Hunter sent his son on a supposed CBI mission to retaliate against a charity organization, one which he believes is responsible for the assassination of my dad. I loved my dad, but as far as I know, he was not an important figure in either ARC's community. Not enough to use the word assassinate. Why would a Brother ARC group even allegedly do such a thing? His murder was a hate crime. A senseless, idiotic attack just for being from his home ARC. But if that is true, why is the Collective's Bureau for Intelligence interested in the circumstances of my father's death? On that note, is Gabriel actually a member of the CBI? Is Ferdinand? Was my dad? My dancing train of thought derails when I hear the front door of the practice open. My heart sinks, but I'm ready to confront this lying son of a bitch. With purpose, I burst through the door. Clarissa, who had just entered the practice, yelps and drops her bags of takeout.
Orion!
She says, shocked and annoyed.
Now why the hell would you do that?
She leans down to collect the bags. Luckily, they landed upright, so at least nothing spilled. Oh, I'm Sorry, I blush. I thought you were somebody else. I pull an ultra-collapsible chair from a cabinet drawer and flick it open to sit at Clarissa's desk with her. As she starts to unbag and plate our lunch, I explain the recent developments and our impending guest. Comforting, savory aromas fill the room as I show her the now broken device I found. More importantly, I tell her about the information on the device. Gabriel Hunter is a CBI agent. My dad was, according to young Hunter's device, assassinated by this terrorist group disguised as a charity organization. Ferdinand Hunter was recruited by his father to go undercover at the organization, and so on. After I explain everything I know, Clarissa raises her fork, points it at me, and, after gulping a full mouth, says,
You keep saying supposedly and allegedly like you're some kind of lawyer. How much of this do you even believe?
I shrug as I take my first bite of some kind of noodle dish. The salty, warm first bite sends me spiraling back to my childhood. This must be from that new Brother Ark cuisine joint.
Well, all I'm saying is,
Clarissa continues after taking another bite.
how do we know Mr. Hunter isn't just a conspiracy nut who roped his son into spying on an ordinary outreach organization? What if Ferdinand actually found love and just couldn't tell his kooky dad?
Great questions. Beginning to speculate all the possibilities, I ready another bite on my fork when a knock on the front door interrupts our meal. Preceding the knock, the visitor walks right in.
Oh, terribly sorry.
Gabriel Hunter says upon entering the practice.
I didn't mean to interrupt anything. I was told to come right away.
I put my fork down and wipe my face. No trouble at all. I'm glad you're here, I reply and gesture towards my office. Please, come in. Sit. Gabriel Hunter walks in, and I follow him, closing the door as I do. Once Gabriel's sitting down across from my desk, I ready my recording device for the interview. I then slam the broken screened device in front of him. Is there anything you'd like to tell me? I grill him. I don't know, maybe something you left out? My heart races. I'm not great at confrontations, but I'm good at acting like I'm great at confrontations. Gabriel looks at the device. He looks up at me as I stand next to him.
Where was it? Who broke it?
Gabriel asks. The device was under a false bottom in your son's kitchen drawer, I respond. And I broke it, out of shock from the contents on the device. Now you answer my question.
Huh,
Gabriel chuckles out.
the kid's using our old tricks. Well, my boy, if you read the mission briefing, you already know.
Gabriel says as he breaks eye contact and looks straight ahead.
Your father was an essential case officer working for the CBI and my handler. This Brother Ark group found out and didn't like that your father was a collective apologist, so they had him killed.
I can't process what I'm hearing. Too many secrets unturned at once, and now I don't know what to believe. Maybe I'm in shock, maybe denial. Keep talking. I want to hear the full story, I managed to blurt out as I walked to the window. Looking out at the horizon and away from Gabriel, I try to focus. What happened between you two? And why bring your son into this all these years later? I ask, confused as ever.
Well, your father and I were given the opportunity to retire here on Sister Ark, and we took it, knowing the work's never finished.
He tells me.
When I approached him about entering the espionage game again, I mentioned we needed some young agents to go undercover.
And you suggested me and my brother. I whisper. Their falling out starts to make more sense.
And I suggest you and your brother, which of course your father hates, to the point of him banishing me from contacting your entire family ever again.
His voice breaks.
I loved your father. I loved your whole family. And now that I know, after all these years, who's responsible for his death, well, don't you want some type of closure?
My mind races, failing to land on a single coherent thought. Suddenly, I'm startled by Clarissa as she knocks on the door. Cracking open the door, she says,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have another visitor. It seems urgent.
I turn to face the door, and as I do, I hear the glass of the window behind me shatter. By the time I even process I heard a gunshot, I hear another. Something zips by my head and into Gabriel. Clarissa screams. She exits the doorway and the office door slams open further. Gabriel's nosy neighbor from before slams through the door with a handgun ready.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Everybody down!
The neighbor screams as she rushes to take cover behind my desk. I stand motionless, as if in Hassa. I watch the neighbor pull Gabriel out of his seat and onto the ground next to her. Eventually, I turn towards the window and examine the shot's origin. In the farthest distance possible on the arc, a quick reflective light shines from on top of a rusty wave generator. I blink and almost miss the assailant's leap from the brown spherical machinery, disappearing into the water below.
Call a doctor!
I hear the neighbor cry. Still in silent shock, I turn back just in time to see her jab a needle into Gabriel, whose blood spread on my office floor.
Call the police!
She cries again as she feels for a pulse. The next few moments blur together. Clarissa rushes me out of the office and down to the building lobby. Within an instant, Polsix and Archean medical officers, or AMOs, arrive and rush upstairs. While the Polsix presumably get a statement from the neighbor, the AMOs drag Mr. Hunter out of the building on a gurney with all sorts of medical tubes and wires. Clarissa encourages me to follow them onto their emergency rover, so I can ride with them to the Archean medical facility. We sit in the rover and wait for a brief moment until the neighbor joins us. The next thing I know, I'm sitting in the AMF cafe with a cup of coffee, across from Gabriel Hunter's neighbor who potentially saved his life. I take a long gulp of the shitty, lukewarm coffee. The caffeine laboriously helps me collect my composure. Setting the mug down, I look at the neighbor, with about 1,000,000 different questions competing to leave my mouth. Before I can speak, though, she goes first.
So prior to getting into this,
The neighbor says, with the full context lost on me.
let me properly introduce myself. My name is Special Agent Carla Roscoe. I work for the CBI.
She pulls out a badge and an ID that confirms it, and then snaps them back into her pockets.
Now, straight to business. Tell me everything Gabriel Hunter told you.
She demands.
What is his involvement with the Brother Ark group?
I look into her eyes. Something's not right. I mean, in addition to all the other not right. Shouldn't you know? I reply. Considering Gabriel's one of yours? Agent Roscoe pauses. Her eyebrows scrunch and her lips purse.
Agent Hunter was fired from the CBI a long time ago. He aggressively pursued a Brother Ark refugee camp that he accused of bombing that OCT from a while back.
Agent Roscoe states with calm confidence.
In the midst of this case, your father was arbitrarily gunned down, and Hunter went off the rails. Then, when our intel came in that the accused organization was clean, he refused to believe it. Hunter, unable to be reasoned with, went on a one-man raid. After he critically injured the innocent owner of the camp, Mr. Yandrias, and his poor young daughter Lizzie, the CBI cut ties with ex-Agent Hunter entirely.
Agent Roscoe pulls out a cigarette and lights it without hesitation. The smell of tobacco and mint fill the cafe. In between draws and sips of her coffee, she continues explaining Gabriel Hunter's paranoid delusions and extreme actions.
He'd been quietly in and out of Hassa since, but when Hunter recently reached out to hire you to find his son, it raised red flags for our guys.
She says, taking another drag before continuing. She then speaks with the utmost authority.
You have to tell me everything ex-Agent Hunter said to you.
I take her story in, sitting in silence for a moment. I chug my coffee further until I can feel it in my teeth. Caffeine jitters shoot up and down my body while my brain works in overtime to process every bit of information revealed to me today. I don't know whose story to trust. As much as I want to believe my dad was assassinated for his apparently important work, I struggle to picture it. The thought of my dad dying for something, and not for nothing, gives me a vague, profound feeling that a senseless death simply couldn't. However, believing that would mean trusting Gabriel Hunter, a hyper-awareness junkie who betrayed the trust of an entire branch of the government, not to mention my dad himself. On the flip side, the CBI is notorious for its secrets. My dad evidently kept secrets from his children his entire life. Perhaps if I didn't break the device, I'd have more to go off of. Maybe Clarissa could repair it if... Shit, the device. My idiot self left it in the office amidst the commotion. Could Agent Roscoe have taken it? If the CBI analyzes the data, they'd know what's really going on. But would they even share the truth with me? Sweat forms on my warm face while I internally scream. This was all avoidable. I should have just gone back to Gabriel Hunter's house to interrogate him again. I shouldn't have dropped the device that could have potentially revealed everything. I'm a moron. Maybe I would have found Ferdinand by now if I weren't such a mess-up. Agent Roscoe stares at me as I hyperfixate on all of the mistakes I made in the past day like some shitty montage. Her impatience starts to show as my mind finally mourns the last moments in my office with Gabriel. I can't help but feel partially responsible, since Mr. Hunter was shot in my office. The shooter used my window and my interrogation as an opportunity to take him out. But wait, why? Who was the shooter? Sick of all the puzzles and games, I give a quick summary of the case so far to Agent Roscoe. I run through the important information without mentioning the device, optimistic that the CBI doesn't already have it. Eventually, I get to the part of the story where Gabriel's shot. And that's where you came in, I explain, wrapping up the recap of events. Speaking of which, do we have any info on the shooter? Using the lit end of her previous one, Agent Roscoe lights another cigarette. It's her turn to process information. But she continues smoking with a blank expression, unfazed. After exhaling a smoke puff that dances in the space above our table, she replies.
We're looking into it.
The agent responds. She makes no attempt at eye contact as she says,
Ex-Agent Hunter made a lot of enemies over the years all across the Polsix system. It could have been anybody, really.
She still doesn't trust me. I still don't trust her. We sit in tense, awkward silence until I finally ask how Ferdinand fits into all of this.
Well, we figured he found love.
Agent Roscoe comments.
I'm assuming he'll visit his father once he hears what's happened.
From there, I excuse myself. My new top priority is finding an exit and the fastest way to the administration office for the outreach program. The only way to know for sure what to believe is to discover the truth myself. I've made mistakes during this case, but I was hired to find Ferdinand. And that's exactly what I intended to do. Remembering the admin office's address from Gabriel's file, I sprint to the nearest vertical 0G lift. Unfortunately, the fastest way to the starboard lower decks is by 2 different 0G lifts. Fortunately, though, I'm too determined to let some nausea and light vomiting slow me down. It's a fast journey into the neglected underbelly of the Ark where the facility is located. The dirty lower decks don't see the same attention or maintenance that the upper and mid decks do. The second 0G shuttle drops me off at a grimy, long-stretching corridor. Every few meters, labeled dark hallways branch off in opposite directions leading to who knows what. Turning down my destination's hallway, I slowly creep into the darkness. I walk past several doors with all types of labels. The eeriness of the lower decks fuels all types of conspiracies, and understandably so. For all the doubt I have in Gabriel's story, in this moment, my gut tells me to remain vigilant in this environment. For the first time since I holstered it this morning, I think about my firearm. Eventually, I find the door that says Brothers of Odyssey Outreach Admin. I knock on the door. After a while, the door is answered by some kid, a teenager. He greets me in a formal Brother Archean fashion and welcomes me into the admin building. Upon entering, I see the front room, a small office, represents the entirety of the building. The admin teenager sits behind the desk in the office and asks how he can help. With some urgency and without all of the details, I explain to the teenager the situation. How Ferdinand's dad is in surgery right now as we speak, and that I'm looking to deliver the news to Ferdinand. I ask the administrator if he knows where I can find him. With a forced smile, the teenager quickly explains that he needs to make a radio call. He excuses himself and rushes out of the room through the front door, and I trust my gut feeling more. As soon as the teenager leaves the office, I stand up to start snooping. Looking around the office, nothing incriminating comes up. In fact, nothing comes up at all. Throughout my search in the office, I don't find a single document, file, or photo. There aren't even any knickknacks on the desk. What kind of teenager doesn't have knickknacks? Suddenly, my radio vibrates. Clarissa, I immediately answer. Where are you? Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine.
She replies softly.
I'm probably blind in one eye, but that can wait. Listen, I fixed the device with the feedback display. Are you still at the medical facility?
You did what? I retort, flabbergasted, before I piece together her first comment with her second, and I plead. Please tell me you didn't look at the screen.
Just with my left eye.
She nonchalantly replies.
It's a one-off trick, but it got us the information we needed.
Damn it, Clarissa. Too good for your own good, I thought before she proceeded to ask where I was. I'm at the Brothers of Odyssey Outreach Admin office, I reply. I'm still trying to find Ferdinand. I place my hands on my hips as I scan the office. Hey, I think you might have been right, I tell her. Maybe this is just an outreach program, and Elisa and Ferdinand are just in love.
No, that's why I called. The mission briefing also contained mission updates from Ferdinand himself.
Panic rises in her voice.
Orion!
She cries.
Eliza is a past victim of Gabriel. The outreach program is a front for some type of institutionalization scheme. Elizabeth Yondrius is recruiting young Archeans and radicalizing them against the collective. I think she kidnapped Ferdinand to draw out Gabriel. You need to get out of that office, Orion, now!
Instead, I run to the front door and lock it from the inside. Clarissa, I say. I can't do that until I find what I'm looking for.
Which is what exactly?
I don't know, but I'll know it when I see it. I hang up. As soon as I hang up, the teenage administrator returns. He wiggles the locked door handle in denial and starts calling out to me, using my name, which I never gave. I continue scanning the room, looking for something, anything that could help me find Ferdinand. Maybe the teenager would lead me to Eliza. Suddenly, 3 massive booms, and the entire room shakes as something more aggressive than Knuckles slams against the office door. Orion Brody, somebody else snarls from the other side. You are trespassing. If you don't open the door, we will take extreme measures. Although I draw my gun, I ignore the continued slams against the door to mind my investigation. Scanning the room top to bottom, I make my way to the end of the office and notice scrapes against the hard floor in front of the far wall. With my free hand, I knock against the back wall and the sound reverberates through the hollow other side. And there it is. I found what I didn't know I was seeking. I set my gun down on the desk behind me and examine the wall for where it might open. Meanwhile, the slams on the door grow more and more violent, increasing my sense of urgency. The metallic door's integrity holds, but the lock or hinges will break eventually. They may kill me, the way they tried to kill Gabriel, unless I find a way through this wall. Desperate, I pick up the desk chair and throw it towards the closed, hidden entryway. The wall rejects the chair, bouncing it back towards me. After catching the chair, I arrange it in my hand to start mimicking the invaders outside the office. The chair thuds against the wall as I ram it repeatedly, battering over and over about twice the pace as the actual battering ram against the office door. After a while, the chair legs start to degrade and crumble against the wall. Shit. Now what? The door starts to rattle in its frame, more and more with each boom. I grab my gun and shoot multiple shots at the back wall of the office. No ricochets, so I assume the bullets fly straight through. After emptying a full clip, I reload my gun and examine the bullet holes. Although the battering chair wasn't successful, the back wall seems thin based on the holes. I have to try again, with something else. I look around the office for anything sturdy enough to ram against the wall, and suddenly I'm out of time. The door flies off its frame, making a dramatic, loud noise against the floor. 2 men enter the office, one with a shotgun, one with a battering ram. "Orion Brody," the man with the shotgun scolds, "you are trespassing on Brother Ark territory." He raises his gun towards me and states, "Put the weapon down, and we can resolve this peacefully." "Where's Ferdinand Hunter?" I reply, gun still in hand. The 2 men share a quick glance before the one holding the battering ram says, "There's nobody by that name in the volunteer registry, but if you come with us, maybe we can help you find him." My grip tightens as I stare at the men for what feels like an eternity. While the men glare back at me, my face flushes and my heart pounds. Looking down the barrel of the shotgun aimed at my chest, I calculate every option. The tension brings time to a crawling halt, and a few moments last a lifetime. My entire day leading up to now displays in my head like it's on a vivid Brother Ark screen. Then I drop to the ground. The man with the shotgun blasts a spread fire above my head. Meanwhile, I take my shot. It's a hit, right in his shoulder. He falls to the ground. Immediately, I jump back to my feet and take a shot at the man with the battering ram, but he's already ducked down and reaching for his companion's weapon. The paper-thin wall behind me, now presenting a gaping hole from the shotgun spread fire, provides my exit. With all my might, I leap towards the hole in the wall, shoulder first to break through. As I pass through the barrier, the sound of shotgun fire follows. After landing on the ground, somehow unscathed, I immediately smell a familiar stench. Stasaline, the reeking component that makes hyper-aware suspended animation possible. I look up and see a dim, brown warehouse with rows and rows of stasis pods. I'm in a Hassa house. Rolling over on my back, I look towards the hole leading to the administration office. The second man takes a step through, and I shoot him in the leg. He yells and drops to the ground, releasing the shotgun on the way down. As I stand up, commotion materializes. HASA attendants round the corners of various stasis pods. A dozen attendants, one for each dozen pods, stand defenseless before me. I raise my gun towards the closest one. "Where is Ferdinand Hunter?" I spit out. The scared attendant silently nods his head in a general direction. "Show me." He then ushers me in the direction he nodded, trudging with my gun at his back. Every pod I inspect along the way contains a subject my age or younger. Many have Brother Archean symbols tattooed or even branded. Eventually, the attendant stops and points. He points directly at a pod that contains a face I only recognize from pictures, but a face I recognize all the same. Ferdinand Hunter. There he is, in stasis, right in front of me. Smiling, I turn to the attendant and send him away. And he runs, and I focus back on the HASA pod to wake Ferdinand up when the sound of a high-caliber gunshot explodes through the air. I look around, confused. My scan brings me back to the attendant who helped me. He's now no longer running. He's face down on the ground, several yards away. A woman turns the corner and walks towards me, obstructing my view of the attendant. I squint to see her in the dim lighting only to notice that she carries the high-caliber gun in her hands. By the time I recognize she's aiming the gun in my direction, it's too late. Another shot rings out. She lowers her weapon and continues to advance towards me when I feel my shirt dampen around my stomach. I inspect the wet spot with my free hand. I'm bleeding. Only then does the pain hit, and I collapse to my knees, trying to hold myself up with Ferdinand's pod. The woman draws closer, and I don't have the strength to raise my weapon. "Elisa!" I cry out. "You don't have to do this, please! Don't do this!" She silently aims her weapon at me again as she approaches, when I notice she's crying. "Lizzie," I whisper. "Please." Her voice breaks as she snaps.
"This is for Brother Ark, for my father."
A loud crack. I open my eyes, and Elizabeth looks confused. Her weapon drops to the ground, and she follows. Standing behind her, Clarissa, in an eye patch, points a firearm in our direction. Smoke still floats from the end of the gun that shakes rapidly in her hand. She drops the weapon and rushes towards me.
Orion!
Clarissa shouts.
Don't you ever hang up on me again. I could have helped. Shit!
She blurts out.
You've been shot.
Oh, that's what that is. I respond, unintentionally sounding sarcastic. You know, you're somehow even more beautiful with an eye patch. She reaches down to help me, applying pressure on the gunshot wound with one hand. She radios for an emergency response team with the other. The side of her face goes blurry while I babble on about the Hunters, the Andreas, and my dad.
I know, Orion.
She says.
We're going to get you and Ferdinand out of here. Don't worry.
The emerging sirens from the Politia and AMOs blare as Clarissa continues to comfort me. A few day cycles later, the hull above the main deck slides shut and receives a projection of a dawn sky. Fictitious clouds pretend to reflect a golden pink back to the fake sun. Watching the display from my office, I breathe in a new day when my radio buzzes in an unexpected pattern. "Kip?" My groggy voice croaks. "Orion?" My brother replies in a mocking tone. "What's up, man? Heard you saved the day and got shot. And Mr. Hunter's dead? You gotta tell me everything." I chuckle and then cringe. It hurts to laugh. A somber wave washes over me as I tell Kip the recap of that day, including all of the conspiracies surrounding Mr. Hunter's life that led to his death. Surprisingly, Kip digests the news of our father being a CBI agent with ease. Eventually, I tell the whole tale to my brother that led to the Hassa house. So yeah, more like Clarissa saved me and Ferdinand after I got shot. I finish my story. Hey, speaking of Hassa, I thought you were supposed to be in stasis yourself right now, I comment, sounding ungrateful for the radio call. Well, he says after a pause, I told them to wake me up for today well in advance. You know why, right? I start to think about all the significant dates in our lives. Today isn't anybody's special birthday. Is it some anniversary of when we left our home arc? Not any anniversary of when our dad died, I know that. Today, my brother, Kip states, thanks to Hassa, you are officially my older brother, the eldest Brody. As such, you should know our family history. He continues joking dryly. Our family secrets. Kip goes on to tell me that he's actually known about our dad's occupation. In fact, he knew more details about his job and even Mr. Hunter's conspiracies than I did. At the end of his monologue, he reveals one more truth, something he, much to my outrage, withheld from me since he left. Kip's reason for leaving. Orion, I'm joining the Collective's Bureau of Intelligence, Kip says. I'm going to be a part of a negotiation committee arranged by the Corey Daniels, the young speaker from the promenade decks. She wants to arrange a peace conference between Brother Ark and the Collective. I mean, maybe we'll even go home someday. All I hear is Kip's joining the CBI. My older brother, no, younger brother, will be a CBI agent. I bite my tongue, withdrawing my opinion and simply congratulate him. Who knows? Maybe I'll learn to trust the Bureau with Kip on the inside. My brother and I speak on the radio for another hour. After hanging up, I think how my father would be proud of him for joining a greater cause. Then I surprise myself by thinking about how my father would be proud of me, too. My eyes swell. My mind wanders, but I snap back when I hear a gentle knock on my office door.
Hey, Orion, I know you said to hold off on new cases while we transferred ownership of the practice to me, so I at least typed up what was on your recording device for now. You've listened to this, right? Because, wow.
I look up and stare into her beaming blue eye, missing the one hidden by the patch. I've listened to it, but I'll still read over what you typed. Thanks, I reply. Hey, Clarissa? I ask.
Yes?
Would you like to go on a date with me? I'd love to visit that Brother Ark restaurant we got takeout from the other day. Clarissa stares at me and smirks.
Oh, I'd love to,
she replies.
But that'd be tricky since your mother made those lunches. Maybe we should just go visit her.
I chuckle, which hurts, but I don't mind. Yeah, that'd probably make us all happy, honestly, I comment. And we exit the office together.
From the transcript of Orion's in-office confrontation with Mr. Hunter.
Keep talking. I want to hear the full story. What happened between you two? And why bring your son into this all these years later?
Well, your father and I were given the opportunity to retire here on Sister Ark, and we took it, knowing the work's never finished. When I approached him about entering the espionage game again, I mentioned we needed some young agents to go undercover. And I suggest you and your brother, which of course your father hates, to the point of him banishing me from contacting your entire family ever again. I loved your father. I loved your whole family. And now that I know, after all these years, who's responsible for his death, Well, don't you want some type of closure?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you have another visitor. It seems urgent.
Shots fired! Shots fired! Everybody down! Call the policia! Call a doctor! Call the policia!
At this point, there is some dead air, followed by commotion as Mr. Brody leaves the office and AMOs drag Mr. Hunter's body out. Then...
It's me? Yes, sir. Will do, sir. And by the way, excellent shot, sir.